here. So first, thank you for your time and your consideration. The reason I'm here and a majority of the crowd tonight is I'm the board chair for Lake Chesterfield, and the item on your agenda that Rick Brown has prepared and the recommendation as far as Lake Chesterfield's water basin or lake, people refer to different things. I asked my community to come out as they do monthly to support the efforts of what we're trying to do moving forward with the survey, and I know that you guys have heard this before, but we've moved to a new step, and the survey has come back from Rolla's team, and we feel that it's comprehensive. We feel like we have some type of understanding more of what possibly needs to be done. So we're at this next milestone that we need to take the next step. During the 68-page original report from Dr. Anderson, he identified a concern during our conversation was with the dam. And for those that are not familiar with Ward 7, the dam is actually Pierside Lane. It's a roadway that passes on the back part of Lake Chesterfield and also goes into Copper Lakes and other communities that aren't part of our association. It is traveled quite frequently, and it does get a lot of traffic. So in this study, to summarize it, what they identified and what he believes is more likely than not is the term that he used, is that the dam was originally built 30 years ago on poor soil. And again, I'm no geotech person, so I'm just learning as I go as well for the terminology. But based on that, the limestone and the things that we're having in the basin of the lake currently, most likely than not, exist underneath the dam. Studies show from what he came back to from his ERT study and the MASW, and it kind of explains this in this report, what Rick put forward to kind of give you the Club Note version. But we feel, and what he felt and what we read, and some of my other colleagues might comment on this, is that there's a possibility that because we have a couple sinkholes, that the dam could be compromised as well, given the pressure, the hydrostatic pressure from the pressure of the water that has been in the basin at full pool. The constant flowing of the water has really broke down the limestone and has caused some of these voids and cracks in the surface. What I presented to Rick Brown, and I really appreciate all the help that the city has provided for our community already, is that I think that further study and his recommendation is what we're supporting, is that the roadway itself could be compromised, like Dr. Anderson said in a conversation, that it could cave today or it could cave in 10 years. But how do you put a time clock on that, just like our lake? You know, it's held, and then all of a sudden the bottom fell out of it. And it was pretty close to the roadway itself. So I defer to the experts in this field. I think we need a geotech engineer firm now to look at the data that's been presented, kind of dissecting it, and I would really love your support from this committee to recommend it to the full council for consideration for further review of the actual dam itself. And we're willing to join hands in partnership to hopefully work together to come to some type of solution. For those that are new to Wildwood, Lake Chesterfield, this was built 30 years ago, and unfortunately, as it says in the report, if you had a chance to read it, is that we kind of got the short end of the stick, and a lot of our residents have been here from the beginning, but there's more of us that have come in later. Other communities, stormwater drains into this system, and we, as Lake Chesterfield, has footed the bill. And over the 30 years, we did some estimates, and homeowners' money, we spent over $1 million into this body of water. So it is important to us. It does concern our property values. A lot of the villas and the condo people that are here present bought into that community for that topography. It's failing, but it's also a big service for the city of Wildwood for stormwater. And it's one of the largest in the area. So we would love any type of support from you to recommend it to full council based on what Rick had written here. And again, we could fill out comment cards, and I don't know who else would want to speak after this card. I didn't have time to explain that and how this was ran. So if you could please allow anybody else that would like to stand to speak without a card and fill it out later, I would appreciate that too. And I'm here for any questions, comments, or anything that you need.
Yeah, that would be no problem if someone wishes to speak just please raise your hand, and we'd be happy to have you speak. But again, just ask that you fill out the comment card and give it to Carla here so that she has it for the record.
And then council, who's here from Lake Chesterfield, if you raise your hand so they can just see who's come out this evening to represent us. So, thank you everybody for showing up. So,
can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Krista? I'm very familiar with the land here. Back during the incorporation, we had to study all of the rock formations and stuff and know something about them. There's an awful lot of karst formations beneath a lot of the city of Wildwood. If more to the north and east, as you move south, you get away from some of it. I don't know that this lake is actually fixable. I mean, maybe some engineer can come up with a better solution for it. One of the things I talked to Mr. Thomas about tonight, and I asked him, he doesn't know either, but a liner, but that lake's pretty large for a liner. But the point is, what happens if they come back and they say it's not fixable?
I think that we are taking baby steps as we go, and when we hit that bridge, then we need to reconvene and discuss what options are viable and what's not. But again, what we like to call a lake and what we love to support for the community, it's really the city of Wildwood, and it's a watershed basin for stormwater for other communities. So it's not just Lake Chesterfield's problem anymore.
I understand, but but my point is, whoever it belongs to, or whatever it is, the question is it really fixable?
That I don't have that answer, but I can comment further on that with other discussions that I've had with the city and Dr. Anderson, is that it's my understanding that being a watershed, let's go back to just stormwater and what the functionality of that basin is supposed to do. It's failing itself. It's not working the way that it should. And for that reason alone, I think that something has to be done. If it's working with MSD, if it's working with the city of Wildwood, if it's working with other communities. But I know that our funds are starting to run out. Our residents shouldn't have to take a special assessment now that more stormwater has been added over the years into that basin. I think that it's causing concern here, and I don't think that it meets the current standards now that MSD has applied for new stormwater basins. So I think that if nothing else, we become compliant and try to find other solutions that you guys could recommend, along with the geotech engineers. So again, we're walking in baby steps, and we're further than we've ever been, thanks to the city of Wildwood helping us get the attention of those that we needed to get to this point. So again, when we get to that, I would love for ideas, but I think the engineers themselves are going to be able to provide what can and cannot be done. But I think that roadway is important for the city itself to make sure that safety is addressed first.
One hand back.
It's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Crystal, but it's my understanding that a few years ago we were told by MSD that it is required to be a watershed, a water drain off area. So your question is what if it's not fixable? That's a heck of a good question. If it still has to remain a watershed, what do we do? That could be more of an insurmountable problem than we're actually facing trying to fix the lake. Is that not correct with MSD did say that?
That is correct.
Yeah.
So even though that we have the control over the land, somebody 30 years ago signed off on this with the developer. And that person's no
including
longer.
MSD. They had any,
MSD was happy to sign off.
they had any suggestions for this?
Getting attention from MSD has been very difficult. They don't return calls,
Yeah.
and they don't want to talk to us. So that was one of the main initiatives that we contacted Rick and Joe Grunich and the mayor. I guess it's been almost a year and a half ago because we couldn't get their attention.
Sir, just for the record, for Carla's benefit, what's your name?
John Moore.
John Moore. And John, could you just fill out a card for her? Thank you.
Okay. Is there any further comment from our community or questions? Go ahead, George.
Comment. George Lynn, I'm a resident, one of the condos. And I've looked at the information and the studies, and there are leaks in the lake where there are vertical holes going down, but everything that's leaking into the lake is going right through the dam and heading downstream. And I think the solution to the problem is to stop it at the dam, stop the flow of water at the dam. And I think the engineer has suggested that in his study. And that's the cost. We're all wondering what the cost is, and we don't know. But I'd like to recommend that if the city could see the way to do it, at least get the study given to a geotechnical engineering firm after proper bidding and selection, and to determine what the cost would be. And if we got that far, if the city would help and assist us in getting that far, to get a handle on the cost based on the engineer's study recommendations. And then we can arm wrestle whatever we need to do to get the cost taken care of. And then we can be talking to MSD, the city, the homeowners. We've already got $1 million in it, like Crystal mentions. And I think we've been pretty well tapped out. And we need some help, we really do. And I'd like this group, if they can at least get it to the city of Wildwood to get a handle on the costs, I think that would be greatly appreciated. Okay, I've got a card here.
Thank you.
Who gets that?
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? If you could raise your hand. Okay.
Thank you for your time, and again, thank you for the consideration. I hope that we can move forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dodwell.
I just have a quick question. I don't know if it's for Crystal or for anybody from the residents, but I want to make sure I understand what you're looking for. Do you want a complete lake to be there, or do you want just the issue taken care of water runoff underneath the roads, etc.?
I think it's a two-part. We're hopeful for a lake, but we need the watershed to work properly.
Okay.
So the attention from the city and the functionality is not just a Lake Chesterfield issue, it's more of all of Ward 7.
No, I understand.
And I think that we need to address that and the safety concerns and have MSD do whatever they need to do, narrow the channel, do something, or give those recommendations. But I think that's what I would like to see, and I think that the community can say the same. You know, we call it a lake, I call it a watershed, and I think that the roadway is, and the dam is the most important piece that we put attention to. And what I'm asking this committee to do is go on what Rick has recommended in his memorandum here, is to maybe do further studies of the dam or have the geoengineers come out and see what are the potential issues when it relates to the roadway.
I'm not opposed to doing that.
Okay.
I'm just trying to understand what you ultimately hope for, because if the geophysical engineers come back and say, we have to somehow let water underneath that road or it will continue to erode, I want that to be a possible option as well, and just wanted to understand.
No, and I appreciate that. Sorry, I didn't understand you fully.
Yeah.
But yes, and whatever it takes, if it's another spillway, if it's a concrete pipe that goes underneath the road, I mean, there's all different options that I've run through my head. I work on this about 30 hours of my own time each week. It haunts me at night. Of anything that I can come up with, a berm to concrete the whole thing in, make it look like River to Pear, I don't know. But we've discussed the liner issue, and Dr. Anderson said if you put a liner in there, it doesn't take away the pressure, and where we have those weak points, that it's just one day you're going to wake up like we have a sinkhole, and that liner is just going to go down with it. So back to the liner issue, unless we fix the soil underneath it, that wouldn't be a viable option.
Just got a couple of council members that want to speak, so if they're related to the speaker, please do. If not, we're going to get into this anyway.
Yeah, I was just going to say, would you rather we hold our comments and let go of the speakers and then get on to the first issue?
That's exactly
All right, let's
right.
do that.
Yeah, let's do
Thank
that.
you.
If you don't have any follow-up questions. So I have another hand, but I also have another card, but since I saw your hand first, I'll let you speak.
Thank you, Joe. Bill Kennedy, 48 Rockwood Forest Ridge. Over the years, I've hesitated to bring this up much. I am an engineer. I've got a couple north of 3 decades of work evaluating levees and dams throughout the country and in Europe, and leading teams who did that, including the flood protection system in New Orleans, and we condemned it. My team before it failed, etc. I'll remind Mr. Thomas that when we were creating the large water feature ordinance, we came up with some information. I'm a member of the Association of Mayor and Safety Officials. Ryan, I believe, are you still a member?
The city.
Rick is, okay. As far as responsibility of the city of Wildwood, any dam that can lead to an exposure to one or more citizens downstream upon catastrophic failure, or any damage to a major piece of public asset, such as a major road, or any combination thereof, is considered by that association and the Corps of Engineers to be a high hazard dam, quote unquote. If the city determines, based on the report from the engineer, that if it could fail tomorrow or 10 years from now because of current conditions, and if that failure would be catastrophic, meaning fails, wipes out, rush of water downstream, and you can expose one or more people to death because they live or that they camp out, or RV park or something like that downstream, or you have a major asset such as a state highway, i.e. Highway 100, then the city has a high hazard dam within its boundaries. And I think the city therefore has certain responsibilities. Just my retired professional opinion. And you won't see a report from me.
Volunteering.
No.
Well, thank you.